Hey there, people, and welcome. My name's John Kirsch, and I'm with the Mug Authors Group, and we talk about everything related to writing, reading, and pop culture, and pretty much everything in between. And today, what I'd like to talk about is something called bully romances, as well as enemies to lovers romances. Now, you might not have any clue what that means. Some of you probably never heard either of those terms. Let me just lay out what they are and what I learned today that pretty much almost made me collapse on the floor. So, if you're not familiar, enemies to lovers romances, it's a theme used in a lot of romance stories. Um, I love reading paranormal romance. So, for example, if you've ever read a story where like on the one hand there's the dashing vampire hunter and on the other hand the beautiful haunted vampire who, wants to appeal to her better nature despite her bloodline and her curse, and how somehow those two star-crossed lovers are, find a way to become a loving couple and succeed despite all the obstacles thrown in their path. That, my friends, is enemies to lovers romance. Fairly straightforward, right? You see it in other cases where like maybe there's a war and you have a protagonist on the one side and a protagonist on the other, and they fall in love even though they're working on they're on opposite sides. Their nations are on different parts of a conflict. Again, enemies to lovers. Now, recently I started reading a story and I thought, oh, this looks cool. It was listed as an enemies to lovers type story, but underneath it, what I failed to pay attention to is it also said it was a bully romance story. So that was one of the tags for this story that I started to read. And if I had known what that meant, I would never have touched it, not with a 10-foot pole. So what is bully romance? Well, let me enlighten you. Bully romance is a subgenre of romance that basically depicts usually it's a female character being relentlessly bullied by a male character who is the love interest. And so what kind of conventions does that involve? Well, a lot of times in these types of bully romance stories, the male is not just it's not just like we're not talking just 50 shades here where maybe dark and brooding and they have a a dark past or a troubled past history. It's more than that. It's that supposedly due to their dark past, they viciously, constantly, relentlessly, brutally, emotionally blackmail, emotionally abuse, emotionally attack the people around them, including the female love interest. And so throughout the storyline of a bully romance, this the female love interest will be constantly belittled, constantly controlled, constantly blackmailed. In the course of the book I was reading, literally 26 chapters into the book, even after I started to skim to see what would happen, literally her love interest in this bully romance story blackmailed her to pretend to be his girlfriend or he would kill her family. Okay, that's the kind of love interest that a bully romance story embraces. Okay, so I want to point this out because this is I think apparently an up and coming genre of story. I don't for the life of me know why, but this whole idea that we should normalize this sort of emotional abusive behavior and actually almost put it up a little bit on a pedestal or is something good, is something that can make for a hot and sizzling romance. Uh, I, I can't think of anything less romantic, to be honest with you. It's basically the very opposite of romance. I mean, it's sickening on so many levels. And I'm all about to each their own. So if if this is what some people find wonderful, you know what? It's a free country, and I'm all for free speech. But what I will say is this: I just want to get the word out because if you are a person who likes to read any kind of stories that involve, I don't know, likable characters that stories actually have a message that's maybe worthwhile and a message that's actually worth something. Um, I personally would steer far, far away from any bully romance because bully romances literally glorify emotional violence. Bully romances literally glorify emotional abuse and abusive behaviors. And I don't know, there's nothing sexy about that. There's nothing attractive about that. There's nothing, you know, romantic about that. And the fact that this is a romantic subgenre, it literally blows my mind. But again, if you're one of those people that's like me and didn't know about this subgenre, I'm just here to tell you that there's a lot of great subgenres of romance out there. So many good ones. I actually love enemies to lovers romances because I love seeing how two people across a great gulf with many different challenges can learn to come together and love each other and become allies. But bully romance is not about that. Bully romance is about continuing abuse that never changes. And it's about it's about being an apologist for the abuser. And I can't fathom that. I can't understand why anyone would. But just be aware, bully romance is out there. If you have a friend or a loved one who's been in a bad relationship, this is definitely not a genre I would ever have them read. Personally, I don't know why anyone would want to read this. But anyway, it's out there, and I just want you to be aware. So anyway, there's some food for thought. Have a good one.